back by popular demand. You love them, you love them, you love them. We got Patrick P. Money Dowd in the building. Pat, man, you're back again. What's happening, brother?
Yeah, back again. Always looking forward to coming here on Mondays talking with you guys. So, ready to go.
Pat's ready to go. He's ready to go. He's charged up. We're ready to go with them, folks. So we're going to get into topic number one here of the conversation, and that continues our positional breakdowns for spring football. Pat and I have discussed the backup quarterback role. Of course, I touched on the running back. So now we're going to get into the group of wide receivers, and I think this is the most intriguing group because this is a young but highly talented group. The Crimson Tide losing Jameson Williams, John Mechie, and Slade Bolden to the NFL draft. Three guys that Bryce Young trusted, three guys that Young developed a rapport with, and Mechie and Williams especially, he developed that rapport with both of those two guys. But Bama's got a group of young, fresh, talented guys, unproven guys, but, you know, which person or which player or players within this group can build that chemistry, can build that camaraderie with Bryce Young. I always go back to when you look at just former quarterback and wide receiver connections in Alabama in discussing A.J. McCarron. He had that connection with Kevin Norwood. He trusted that guy on the field. Blake Sims had that connection with Amari Cooper, trusted him on the field. Jalen Hurts had that connection with Calvin Ridley. Now, Tua Tagovailoa, he had a connection with everybody, whether it was Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs III, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. Mac Jones had that connection with Devontae Smith. Bryce Young, like I mentioned, had that connection with Jameson Williams and John Mechie. But in this group, who builds that connection, who builds that camaraderie with Young? And Pat, as we look at now spring ball coming up here for this group of young, talented, looking to prove themselves at that wide receiver position, we're going to get into kind of, I guess, our projected starters in the wide receiver room for Alabama. But start off with you first, my man. Who would be your projected three starters at that position, and the guys you feel like will build that consistent camaraderie and have that faith coming from Bryce Young?
So the three guys I'm going with are, first of all, Trayshawn Holden, Ja'Cory Brooks, and Jermaine Burton. I say Holden because throughout the whole entirety of last season, Nick Saban said he was probably the most consistent out of all of the young receivers throughout the entire year, and he was really the guy who saw the most playing time when you look at the entire season. So I think he's gonna be a guy that you look upon who has a little bit more experience than some other guys, a little more familiarity with Bryce Young. And then moving on to Ja'Cory Brooks, I mean, everyone saw he showed up in big games for Alabama, most notably the Iron Bowl where he caught that.
That was a big play right there.
That was a huge play. And so he appears to be a big game player, which is something that Alabama is also going to need. And lastly, I say Burton because, I mean, just look at Nick Saban's recent history in the transfer portal. He doesn't go in there to get these guys to just ride the bench. I mean, look at Henry To'oTo'o and Jameson Williams last season. These guys that Nick Saban goes out and gets play immediately, and I think Burton fills a hole in Alabama's offense in terms of its explosive play ability. With Williams going on, Jameson Williams leaving for the NFL, Burton averaged almost 20. I think if I remember correctly, 20 yards per reception for Georgia last season. So that's going to be a big area that Alabama needs offensively if they want to have success this season.
Burton, Brooks, and Holden, the three coming from our own Patrick Dowd. And I like the three you put out there, Pat, because you go back in the transfer portal just solely at wide receiver. Alabama brought in Richard Mullaney in 2015. We saw what he did coming from Oregon State. Brought in Garrett Dieter from Bowling Green in 2016. He proved to be a pretty solid guy in his own right. And of course, Jameson Williams, we know what he did as a big-time game-breaking receiver. So I can see why you brought Burton in here along with Holden and Ja'Cory Brooks. Now, for me, the three guys I'm going to go with, I'm going to go a J.I. Hall, Ja'Cory Brooks, and Christian Leary from the slot position. So here would be my three. For Hall, it would be put up or shut up time for him because 6'3", 195-pound, five-star from South Florida, came in under a whole lot of expectation. Of course, last spring dominated that A-Day game, 4 catches for 72 yards, and people thought he would carry that into the fall season for 2021. Now, of course, there's a mixed bag of blame going around. Some people say, well, you can't blame Hall because Alabama didn't rotate the receivers. He didn't have much time on the field. A lot of that's got to go on Saban and the coaching staff. You can't put it all on a J.I. Hall. But some say, hey, didn't prepare the way he should have, wasn't focused the way he should have. He's all over social media a lot. So this moment for him, it's go big or go home for a J.I. Hall on the field. But I like the talent. I think he knocks in, could be a really good player, especially at the top of that formation. Ja'Cory Brooks, for some of the same reasons you mentioned, he's a big game, big-time player in the Iron Bowl. When you needed it, he made the catch. He tied the game in ruckus Jordan-Hare Stadium to set up the 4 overtime period, and then he had the 44-yard catch and score against Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl. So Brooks, C7, big-time player right there. Christian Leary in the slot because of the pure speed. JoJo Earl's quick too, but I think Leary is more acceleration fast than quickness. And when you look at today and age of college football, speed kills. You go back to the national championship game. When Jamison Williams went down and the type of speed that he brings, Kirby Smart and Georgia were like, thank goodness nobody else right now prepared to do what that guy does in terms of eviscerating the defensive secondary with his kind of speed. And when I look at Christian Leary, he's a 10-5, 100-meter dash type of guy on the track field. You get that speed in the slot, move him around, he can make some massive plays for you. But I would look at Hall, put up or shut up, Brooks due to his big game potential, and then Leary with the speed coming from the slot position there.
Yeah, so here's what I'll say. We both agree on Brooks. I think he is going to be a star next season. Leary, I think he's gonna have to prove a little something. He's gonna have to prove a little something this spring.
For him.
It's gonna be a big spring
for him.
But I do think that he built some rapport with Nick Saban last season by stepping up in that reserve running back role. I mean, maybe Nick Saban and Bill O'Brien do use him as a running back this upcoming season. That's going to be another area where there's going to be a lot of competition get on the field. And look, J.I. Hall, there was even despite after all the kind of hecticness and confusion that was surrounding him last season, why isn't he playing? All the cryptic tweets and everything. Like that A-Day game still sits in people's minds, and I believe that if he can put it together, he could be the best receiver on this team. He has all the ability to do so. He just has to put it together and just kind of straighten himself out here. And this is going to be a big opportunity to grow up this spring.
It's going to be for him, can he stay out of his own head? Sometimes you could have the most talent birth player, but it gets in their own head. If he can stay out of his own head and just put the work in on the field, if he can do this, he has the makeup. He has the physical makeup to do this.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say, too. Like, him being thrust into the national championship game and maybe not being the most prepared may have been the best thing that could have happened to him, because he got on the field and showed just, you can't prepare like this and expect to go out there and play well. I mean, he had a couple of big drops in that game, so maybe that's the kick in the butt that he needed to get going for this upcoming year.
Going to be fun to watch what Hall does, Pat, and what all of these guys do, because like I mentioned, Bryce Young had that connection with Jamison Williams, knew where he was going to be, knew when he was going to break out off the route and catch the football. The same thing with John Mechie. There was a reason why prior to last season, Bryce Young called Mechie the cornerstone of the offense, and you saw with Mechie having 96 receptions to lead the team a season ago. So now it's who becomes those guys that when Bryce Young looks at them, he can trust those guys on the field.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Young is probably the best player in the country just in general. So, and if Alabama can't get any development or can't get any consistency out of this receiving room, it's not going to matter. So they really need some of these young guys to step up and spring ball right now to solidify those roles.
Spring practice, folks, coming up soon here as we will enter the month of March on tomorrow. So probably by week 2 or week 3 of March, we can get into some spring practice action, especially with the Alabama Football Athletics Department getting us that email with spring practice starting up.